everyone and welcome back to the FPL Family YouTube channel. I'm Sam and today we're going to be taking a look at the newly promoted sides to think about who are the best picks from each of those three clubs. Now of course we have got deep dives available on Watford, on Brentford and on Norwich, and I will link them during the course of the video so they will appear up here as we get to those clubs. But for now we're going to go through each of them in turn, thinking about which offers the best value for us in terms of the players and exactly who are those players that we should or could invest in from the different clubs. Now let's start with Norwich City, the champions of the Championship last time around. They have the worst set of opening fixtures that they could have asked for in the Premier League, starting with a game at Liverpool, City, Leicester and Arsenal. Now, those fixtures are disastrous. However, there are some benefits in that, one, they've done and you don't have to play them again till much later on in the season, but also it means that the fixtures that they have between game week 5 and game week 14, apart from a fixture against Chelsea in game week 9, look absolutely wonderful for us as FPL managers to look to invest in. And if we have a little look at the underlying stats from the Championship, Norwich have come up in a much better place than they went down the season before. So on the screen, we have the results that they had across the course of last season, where they had the second best defensive record in the Championship, only behind Watford, who of course we'll talk about shortly. 36 goals conceded across 46 matches in the Championship. In that time, they kept 18 clean sheets, although 11 of those did come at home. So it'll be interesting to see the impact that having fans back in the stands at Carrow Road has, and whether that number increases in the Premier League, or even if they could just maintain it. Because if they could get that level of clean sheets in the Premier League, that would be phenomenal going into this new season. They have, however, lost Ollie Skipp during this pre-season. He's returned to his parent club Spurs, and they have now replaced him with Billy Gilmore, who I think is the player that you could own from game week 1. At 4.5 million, Billy Gilmore offers some massive FPL potential, not necessarily because he's going to get huge returns, but because he is going to give you a almost guaranteed starter who costs 4.5 million in the midfield. And having that is absolutely going to be so important in building a team with as many premium and popular picks as we can in this early part of pre-season. Has also been mooted that he might play a slightly more attacking role than Skip did last time around, maybe more of a number 8 position, and if he does that, of course, that adds to his appeal from an FPL perspective. But what I really like about having Billy Gilmore is the 2 points that's going to just turn over week upon week upon week. Having those 2 points coming off your bench could be all important, particularly if we have some hangovers from COVID problems or whatever it is that means that we need our bench players to come in. Being able to have Billy Gilmore there is so important. I don't know that he's quite what Ollie Skipp offered them last time around, but if he plays like he did for Scotland in the Euros, then he could be a really nice option for us as FPL managers. If you want a Norwich City player who's going to bring you more than just match time points every week, then there's a couple on the screen that I want to talk about. Max Aarons, whose heat map that we have there, 4.5 million, obviously can go as a rotating pair with the other 4.5 million players. He was their most attacking defender last time around, was an outlet down the right hand side for Norwich, and is quite happy to just go at pace down the wing. Now of course last time around he had the link up with Emi Buendia, which he no longer has, so we're yet to really see what impact this will have on Max Aaron and his potential for attacking returns. But he does have a new partner who's likely to play with him there in terms of Rashika. Now, he isn't new to the club, signed in 2019, but he did struggle last time around, and I think that in part was because there was a lot of chatter about him maybe moving to AC Milan, which seemed to kind of throw him. When we have a look back on his career, though, he has got some good underlying stats. For Werder Bremen, he made 100 appearances, and in that time, 46 goal and assist combinations, so not bad at all. And if he can replicate that in the Premier League and build a relationship with Max Aarons, the two of them could be nice options. Rashika coming in at 5.5 million, so we could have some really nice combinations between those two from game week 5 onwards. They could both be good potential picks. Of course, it's Pukki that most people are going to go to, though. He is their key player, he's their key striker, and he is the one that I suspect will offer the most for us as FPL managers. 26 goals last season, 35% of Norwich's goals came from Pukki in the Championship last season, so showing just how important that he is to Norwich City. So I think for me, those are the kind of key players. You can, of course, go with Tim Krul as well. He had the best save percentage across the top 4 tiers of English football last time around with 80%. He also made 93 saves, kept 17 clean sheets and 2 saved penalties last time around. He's got a new deputy this time around in Angus Gunn, so there's a bit more competition there, but you can go with the 8.52 keepers from a club if you want to, because I don't think you're going to fill your Norwich slots, so that wouldn't necessarily be a problem here. He's an option, but I think Max Aarons offers a little bit more in terms of his attacking potential that he could bring from a Norwich perspective. 2 goals and 2 assists for Max Aarons last time around. Could go Rasika, but again, I want to use those first 4 game weeks to watch what he does. Pukki, I think we could go with, but remember, he did have a very good period at the beginning of last season and then it massively tailed off, so it might be a case of getting on Pukki at the right moment and then exiting quickly. Before we move on to talk about Brentford though, quick mention to Todd Cantwell. Could be the best option at Norwich when we're looking at midfielders. However, we don't really know yet where he's going to be playing. Lots of chatter about him getting a move away from the club, although likely to stay in the Premier League if that does happen. 6 goals and 2 assists for Cantwell last time he played in the Premier League. 12 in total in the Championship, goal and assist combinations in the Championship last time around in the 30 starts that he had. I think we've got some potential here. Billy Gilmore, just for the enabling potential, I think is an FPL must-have really. Potential to offer so much more in attacking returns if he does play in that number 8 too. And then you're kind of making choices. Do you want to go with the defence? I think Watford offers slightly better defensive stats, so maybe you want to go with one of them. But if you do want rotating pairs to cover you from game week 5 onwards, then going with a Norwich asset might just be the way to go, and particularly going with Max Aarons. Let's have a little look at Brentford then. Obviously came up in the playoff final. Key player is on the screen there and we'll talk about him shortly. They actually had the worst defensive record of the 3 newly promoted sides last time around, with 42 goals conceded in 46 matches last time around. They kept 17 clean sheets, where Norwich managed 18 and Watford managed 23, so they were a little bit behind in those defensive stats. But when we have a little look a bit further back, in the 1920 season, they conceded 38 goals, so they're always on the slightly higher side when it comes to conceding goals. Having said that, only Barnsley conceded fewer goal attempts than Brentford did. So they're not giving away a huge amount of attempts, but they do seem to quite regularly concede goals, which is disappointing. They made 67 saves from shots inside the box last season, so those are good underlying stats for the goalkeeper. Potential for save points and additional points there could be positive. So let's have a little look at some of their positions then. So we've got Jansen, 4.5 million again, so another cheap option. He's their first choice centre-half. Did miss half of the season last time around, but if you just want a centre-half that's guaranteed, certainly happy to bench every now and then, he could be an option. But I think that there are some better options if we want to look at defensive players. In particular, I'm going to pick out Rico Henry. 4.5 million again, so again, fits into that nice rotating pairs category. He was the left back at Brentford. He missed the last 15 matches of the season last time around. 25 chances in 30 appearances for him last time around, which was more than any other Brighton defender. 4 assists and 2 goals in 110 Championship appearances. So he's not going to set the world on fire with attacking threat, but he is going to offer some attacking threat. I don't think quite as much as Max Aarons from a Norwich perspective, but the attacking threat is definitely there with Rico Henry, so you could go with him. When we have a little look then at the goalkeeper, it's David Raya for Brentford, who is their first choice. 42 starts in goal for him last time around and ever present in the 1920 season. Save percentage of 74.2%, which was lower than Bachmann at 76.1% and Krul, as I mentioned a minute ago, at 80%. Has Gunnarsson as second choice at 4.0. So again, you can go with those 2 in at 8.5 million, which does feel nice in terms of saving points, but I'm not sure you would want to play the defender, the goalkeeper every week, and that is the issue with doing that. They were the highest scoring Championship side in 2021 and also in 1920, 39 goals at home and 40 goals away from home. So they have some real attacking threat in these teams. But when you have a little look, as you can see in the graph that I've got on the screen there, about the people that are scoring the goals, you can see that it is massively, heavily weighted in the favour of that man there at the bottom and in the graphic in Ivan Toney. he was definitely the leading scorer and also up there, apart from with Mbumo, with the number of assists that he registered as well. So talking about Mbumo for a minute then, 15 goals in his debut season for him. And it was quite a poor season on all accounts for him last time around. Would have expected better. But he did suffer from long COVID last season. And so this could be something that we can kind of see built upon over the course of this season. Matthias Jansen as well, leading chances creator for Brentford last time around. Only 8 players made more passes across the championship than he did with 67, and 40 of his chances came from set pieces, and we all do like to be invested in set piece threats. So there are other options. I think that's what I'm saying. Obviously Tony is the best pick at Brentford, but there are other options too. If you want a defender, Rico Henry could be the man that you go for. If you want to go with one of the other kind of attacking options, then Mbuma or Jensen could be the ones that you choose to invest in. So just to clarify on Tony for a minute then before we move on, as you can see, 31 goals, 10 assists, third for goal attempts with 135, and for shots in the box across the championship with 106. He only missed 10 big chances last season, so whatever they created for him, he pretty much finished. And we should note that 9 of his goals were from penalties. He also created more big chances than Mbumo and Jensen did, so he is definitely a better pick than them. But if you want to go for a midfielder rather than a striker because you're precious about your striker spots, then Mbuma and Jensen could be the ones that you want to go for. Finally then, the last of the newly promoted sides, Watford. 23 clean sheets, as I've already mentioned last time around, and just the 30 goals conceded for them, both league leading totals in the championship. And in fact, their goals conceded ratio number was the record equaling across the championship, so that was the second time that number's ever been registered across the league. Under Munoz, since December 2020 when he took over, they only conceded 3 goals in 13 home matches, and in that time they kept 11 clean sheets at home, which is a phenomenal stat. Started under him and in the beginning of last season in a 4-4-2 formation, but have quickly settled by February into a 4-3-3 formation. He really likes to play overlapping full-backs, wingers getting on the ball as much as possible, and of course that gives us as FPL managers the perfect investment. I've been talking a lot about Serralta, and I think he could still be a good option from set pieces. He's one of their central defenders, but maybe actually it's the wingers that could offer us the biggest attacking threat. Now, as with all the other championship clubs, you could go Bachmann and Foster, have the 8.5 rotating potential there because you've always got a player to play, depending upon who ends up being first choice, although I suspect it will be Bachmann. Of course, this may change if he does move abroad, but I just can't see that happening. Bachmann kept 13 clean sheets in 23 starts last time around and made 4 penalty saves in the League Cup last season. And then, of course, we'll move into the wing-back position. So the left and the right back, Femenia and Messina on the other side. So starting with Femenia, then 4 assists in 37 appearances, made 30 key passes, which was more than the rest of the Watford fullbacks combined last time around. Has a beautiful relationship with Ismaila Sarr, who's in front of him. And so their connectivity could be really vital in terms of getting forward. And we'll talk a little bit more about Sarr and what that could mean for him in a little while. Messina on the other side, then 26 appearances, 2 goals, and made the EFL Championship Team of the Season. So again, both of them having attacking threat. Both of them, we know from Watford's defensive stats, have the potential to keep clean sheets. Now, of course, keeping clean sheets is different in the Championship to being in the Premier League. But I think if I'm going with a Watford defender, I'm either going with a goalkeeper, probably both of them, or you pick between Femenia and Messina on the other side. If we have a look at Watford going forward then, Sarri is going to be clearly the main pick, as you can see from that graphic, which shows the number of goals that they scored over the course of last season. They had the 6th best attacking record in the Championship, scoring 63 goals in 46 fixtures last season. Brentford, Norwich, Bournemouth, Cardiff and Blackburn all scored more goals than they did, but their goals per game ratio did massively improve under the new manager. So when he arrived, it was at 1.15 goals per game, and by the time he took over in the end of the season, it was at 1.4. It was 1.54 goals per game. So a huge improvement there in terms of the number of expected goals across the course of the season, and what we should therefore hopefully be able to expect from Watford going forward into the new season. So Sarr, Watford's top goal scorer with 13, but that's not a huge number, and that's something that I think we should be slightly concerned about as FPL managers, although of course these players are cheap. So going with Sarr at 6.5, he is a nice cheap option. They do have a really nice run of fixtures. He does have a really nice relationship with Femenia. and he does have the attacking threat to back up going for him as an FPL option. Sema is also a regular in that midfield, 5 goals and 5 assists last time around, and was Watford's top creator with 51 key passes. But I think you're going to go Sarr if you're going to go with somebody from the Watford midfield. Looking up top, I think actually the better options come at Norwich and at Brentford in terms of Tony and of course Pukki once we get to game week 5. However, there is going to be some competition this time around. I suspect it's going to be Deeney and Josh King fighting it out for that number 9 spot for Watford next time around. Josh King obviously had an incredibly disappointing season last time around at Everton, was very vocal about how he wanted more game time and has now arrived at Watford, so I suspect that he will be getting more game time this time around, so there might be some rotation risk. But at 5.5 million, you may be prepared to take that because you can always bench him on game weeks where he doesn't play and it won't be too much of an issue. Deeney, 19 goals across the last 2 Premier League seasons that he's been part of, and 7 goals in the Championship last season. He did have a lot of injuries last time around, so that is just something to consider. Deeney's on penalties usually for Watford, that's another string to his bow, so from the attacking perspective, he's probably my favourite of the two, but I would go Sarr over the both of them combined. And when Deeney hasn't been on the pitch, it tends to be you win it, you take it, because we've seen Sarr take one and we've also seen Pedro take one for Watford. So from a Watford perspective, I think your best bets are to either go with the goalkeeper or one of the defenders, in particularly Femenia. Serralta if you want to go with the centre-back, but be wary of those yellow cards, or Messina. If you want an attacking player, you just go Sarr. From a Norwich perspective, I think your best bets are to go with somebody like Max Aaron's post-game week, or from game week 5 onwards, and then have a little look at Pukki from that point also. There is potential there in players like Rashika, but let's see how he settles in these opening few game weeks. And then finally, from a Brentford perspective, we're 100% best pick from Brentford is Ivan Toney, but there are some other players in there that we could have a look at. The keeper might not be a bad option, and Mbuma could be a nice pick in that kind of midfield slot. That's it from the top picks from the newly promoted sides. Let me know who you think is the top pick from one of the newly promoted sides in the comments below. Don't forget to hit the like button if you've enjoyed this video, and if you haven't already done so, hit that subscribe button. Thanks so much for watching, guys.